Breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ. The Toronto Blue Jays will need to find a new home for the upcoming season. The Canadian government has denied the team approval to play games in Canada. Blue Jays AAA affiliate located in Buffalo, perhaps a landing spot. Toronto opens the season Friday at Tampa Bay, then plays its home opener 5 days later against the reigning World Series champion Nationals. All right, so here's a statement from the Blue Jays. They said in part, extending its sincerest thanks to Mayor Tory, the City of Toronto, and Toronto Public Health. From the onset of discussions with league and government officials, the safety of the broader community, our fans, and the team remain the priority of everyone involved. And with that, the club completely respects the federal government's decision. That's coming from the president, Mark Shapiro. Though our team will not be playing home games at Rogers Center this summer, our players will take the field for the 2020 season with the same pride and passion representative of an entire nation. We cannot wait until the day comes we can play in front of our fans again on Canadian soil. They will share an update as soon as it is available. All right, so a well-crafted statement, and someone who knows very well about well-crafted statements, David Sampson, former Marlins president, CBS Sports MLB analyst, host of Nothing Personal with David Sampson. And David, the word of the day is denied, as in the Canadian government has denied the Blue Jays playing their home games in Toronto. Your reaction is what, my friend?
So I knew this was coming. I've been thinking about this since they were allowed to play spring training or summer camp in Canada. The issue is the Canadian government has done such a good job of absolutely flattening not just the curve, but in terms of really getting rid of COVID. They've almost gotten down to zero. And the U.S. has not gone that direction at all. And Canada said, you know what? We don't believe that the health and safety protocols that Major League Baseball is insisting on, we don't believe that incoming players will actually follow those protocols, and the danger to our community in Canada is much too large. It's simply not worth it. So that's a pretty big statement coming out of Canada, and it's got to make MLB think to themselves, wow, you know, we're trying to do a season without a bubble, and we really are taking a big chance. A whole government in Canada is saying, we don't think it's going to work. So we'll see what happens after this.
Let's discuss the two possible locations in terms of Buffalo, their AAA facility, in which, you know, Buffalo at one point was trying to get a major league team back in the 80s. They have a field there that seats about 17,000, Salem Field in Buffalo. And then, of course, their spring training facility in Dunedin. Let's start in Buffalo. Why would that work? Why wouldn't it work?
Well, I think Buffalo is going to have to work because, Hakeem, there's no way that they're coming to Dunedin. I'm here in Florida right now, and it's best for everyone to be out of Florida. This is the epicenter of the pandemic right now in the United States. So adding teams to Florida does not seem like a good plan to me. So Buffalo is the logical answer. They've got to get that stadium ready. It doesn't matter that it only seats 17,000 because there aren't going to be any fans. What they've got to get done before July 29th, which would be their home opener in Buffalo, three things. One, they've got to secure both home and away housing, because now you're going to have the Blue Jays there, who are now going to be on the road really for 60 games. So they've got to find permanent housing for the course of the regular season. Then you've got to get information to all the traveling secretaries of other teams who were due to play in Toronto, starting with Washington and Philadelphia with that first homestand, and you've got to get them into a proper hotel in the Buffalo area. So I think Buffalo will be announced, but the traveling secretaries, if you're looking for up to the second info, you go to the traveling secretaries.
Yeah, I'm curious what the discussions are like right now, and I'm sure that you've been in discussions like these in terms of big decisions like Mark Shapiro is right now, the Blue Jays president. But I know you said it wouldn't be a good idea to add another site in Florida, but we've already got Miami, we've already got Tampa Bay, and they've got this home stretch where, again, like they're playing Washington, playing Philadelphia. Why not just stay in Florida? If you start in Tampa Bay, you just stay in Florida, Dunedin, and you play, 7 or 8 games there.
Well, I think you want to try from the player's standpoint and for the competitive integrity of the game, you want to have the Blue Jays in a place where they are in one place for all 30 of their home games. And I just don't think it's realistic to stay in Dunedin from a spring training standpoint. It's not a place for regular season. Remember, what they're doing in Buffalo right now to get that stadium ready is they're retrofitting the clubhouse to make sure that it follows the social distancing and the new protocols that are necessary to host games. They've got to do a full cleaning because Buffalo was not expecting to host any games because there's no minor league season. So they've probably been working on it already, even though the government had not made its announcement until now, or at least made it public. I think they've started to work on the Buffalo Stadium. I think that's the logical place where the Blue Jays will play. Not as good a road city as Toronto for the rest of the National League East and the American League East. But frankly, you're not supposed to leave your hotel anyway, so what's the difference?
Take me through the discussions right now. Maybe the front office is talking about, and then maybe how this is going to impact players on the field, managers on the field.
So this is happening really in New York with the commissioner's office. They're working closely with the Toronto front office, and they have to work with the union because they have to find a way that the players are satisfied that where they're going to be, whether it's Buffalo or anywhere else. Again, I think it's Buffalo. They have to make sure that the players are going to be comfortable. Are they going to be in a hotel for those 30 days? So it's like being on a 60-game road trip. Are they going to try to get housing for the players? What about the player families? All those who were going to have their families with them in Toronto, those players who live in Toronto, they will now be away from their families. Or do you bring the families on the road? Then you have to talk about, if you're not doing housing, are you doing hotels? Who gets the suites in the hotel? Because if you have a family of 4 and normally you're with your family, when you're in one room in a hotel, while many people do it, that may be a little crowded for major league players. So there are little logistical things that have to be taken care of, and that happens at the traveling secretary level to actually do it. But the decisions are made with the commissioner, with Mark Shapiro, and frankly with the other owners. Because if I'm the Nationals, I've got to know where I'm going to play because it impacts my entire schedule and what I'm doing from an itinerary standpoint. Normally, the first road trip itinerary is already prepared by the traveling secretaries. The players are aware, the front office is aware of when the planes are going to leave. By the way, all the teams have to change where their charters are going. So if you're coming from the south, it's actually cheaper because it's fewer hours in the air. Depending on if you're in New York, could be longer, shorter. So there's a lot of moving parts here when you find out a week before that you've got to switch home bases.
I love logistics. I think if I wasn't doing what I was doing right now, talking to you, I think I might want it to be a traveling secretary. I know it's a headache, but it sounds fun. It sounds chaotic, but not so much for the players because, and David, when you look at this team, this is a fairly young Blue Jays roster, so I'm not sure that a lot of these kids are going to be like, well, no, I'm not playing, because it's going to feel a little bit like a minor league situation where they don't really know what's going on right now. Maybe then they finally do land in Buffalo, but might this cause some players to think, maybe I opt out of the season because of this?
No, I think it's the opposite. So if you spoke to players and you got them in a moment of honesty, they'd say that going back and forth to Canada is a pain in the neck. You have to fill out the customs forms, and you've got to go through customs both when you go and when you come. So now they're saying, wait a minute, we're going to stay in the States. That means we never have to go through customs. I'm good with that. And when you've got a young team and you're talking about Bichette and Biggio and Guerrero and the rest, you're thinking to yourself, they're pretty much go with the flow. They just want to see that there is a, 60 feet, 6 inches, and they want to start raking as quickly as possible. But if you were talking about a 162-game season, which is more of a marathon, I think you'd see a much bigger problem with the players having to relocate for 6 months. But I think they're looking at themselves and saying it's likely only 2 months because, frankly, I don't see a path to the playoffs for them anyway. So you're more looking like just August and September.
The Buffalo Blue Jays. Pretty good ring to it, right?
Oh, no, Hakeem. It's the Toronto Blue Jays playing in Buffalo. There will not be new merchandise that says Buffalo Blue Jays. Nothing like that is going to happen. This is the Blue Jays. This is like when the Marlins had to leave and play in Chicago because of hurricanes here in South Florida. This is a temporary relocation. The hope is that the U.S. can get its act together and find a way to curb COVID, and so the Blue Jays can return home. You're not going to hear MLB announce that all 30 home games have been moved to Buffalo. They're going to take it on a week-by-week-by-week basis. No matter what they announce, that's what it is, because ideally the Blue Jays would be back in Toronto.
So you are certain at this point that the Blue Jays will be moving to Buffalo for their home games?
I'm going on the record. It's a wait to see on an off day from nothing personal, but wait to see when the Nationals go to town, they'll be going to Buffalo instead of Toronto.
Western New York's a great place to live. That's where my in-laws are. So I have to talk kindly, speak kindly. They play, that's called Salem Field. Great hot dogs. Salem Field. Remember that, David. When you want to get a hot dog, Salem, not Nathan's, Salem hot dog from Buffalo, all right? And then you can have a hot dog, you can shave your beard 5 days from now. Great stuff, David. Appreciate the time. David Sampson here breaking down the news that Toronto is not allowed to play its home games in Canada. The Canadian government denying the team approval. And look, if you want more from David Sampson, which I do, you should as a sports fan. You become a smarter sports fan, takes you behind the curtains in terms of the executives, what their discussions are like. David Sampson breaking down all the top news and reaction. Nothing personal with David Sampson. Download and subscribe today. You can also watch on YouTube as well.
Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.